Hey guys, what's up? We're here with a new episode of Fancasting, and this time we are fancasting the whole Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise, but not the whole thing, just five of the main characters: Sam Neill's character, Laura Dern's character, Jeff Goldblum's character, Chris Pratt's character, and Bryce Dallas Howard's character. So, with that, let's get right into it with Sam Neill. Nick, who did you end up casting in that role?
So for the role of Alan Grant, you need a sort of like he's the scientist, but like this guy's kind of also kind of gruff. Like he's just sort of like not a very like sociable person and someone who's just kind of like he's kind of a solitary person. And like honestly, I changed it right before we started this because I was like, I'm gonna take a chance. Um, but I went with our favorite space dad, Pedro Pascal, as our Alan, because I was like, like not even just like focusing on Mandalorian where he is a loner for the good chunk of like gives that vibe off, but like you look at even like Kingsman, he like doesn't like having Taron Egerton around for like the first half of the movie. He's a very like staunch personality, but between Mando and Kingsman, you see there is a degree of like intelligence and sort of like intelligence to match his gruffness. And I think like he also and also like the sort of arc of Alan, at least in the first one, especially, is him like peeling back those layers. And like you see even in like in Wonder Woman, like you see he has like a sort of more sentimental side. And I think between that like trinity of performances, I think Pascal would be a pretty good Alan, a pretty like great like modern day Alan too. Someone who's a little more like down to earth and a little more like uh communicative.
Yeah, I like that choice. It's not who I would have went with because,
Mhm.
of course, I'm me, and so I have my own person in mind.
Right.
Uh, I went with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay.
I really buy him as a scientist. I don't know. I just
Of
look at
course.
him and I see like scientist. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think he can play both sides of the coin. He can be the Doctor Strange who at the beginning is very stubborn, set in his ways, kind of a curmudgeon,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. But
Right.
and then he can kind of peel back the layers. If you've seen films like gosh, I'm hoping this is the right film, The Imitation Game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in the second and third act of that film, he really peels back layers in the whole, and you really get to see who he really is.
Mhm.
And I think he can play well in the action franchise. And I think he's just a great actor who's really versatile and could fit the
For sure.
role.
Okay. I got you.
Um, let's move on to Laura Dern as Ellie.
Mhm.
Nick, who did you end up casting in that role?
That one I kind of like I saw it like in my head and I was like, yeah, like there's always one when we do these things. There's just one person I'm like, that's right, I'm gonna hold to it. But I went with Emily Blunt. I just think like Emily Blunt is similar to Alan. Ellie is like an intelligent character, but she's also like the talker of the two. She's more willing to speak her mind, and like you always like you always get that implication, that vibe from Emily Blunt. You see she has she can hold herself down in an action film from like Edge of Tomorrow, and like it's not necessarily an action film, but like A Quiet Place 2 requires her to do like go through a lot of like crazy situations. But even like The Devil Wears Prada, or or I think like Mary Poppins, I haven't seen that, but like from what I hear, like between both of those roles, she's a very like sharp, like witted, sharp tongued, and like just very perceptive person, and perceptive performance. And I think she'd be great to succeed Laura Dern as Ellie. I think it'd be again another sort of like great modern day like continuation of the role.
Yeah, I think that's a really great choice. A really great choice. I ended up going with Brie Larson in the role. I think she encompasses a lot of the similar qualities that Emily
Yeah.
Blunt does. Uh, I think she's very much a speak your own mind person, and I think that fits Laura Dern.
Yeah.
Uh, she's someone who can play a really smart character. She just kind of carries that confidence of someone who's like a really smart intellectual.
Mhm.
And I think yet again, she's another person who's great with action.
Yeah.
So I think she kind of fits all of those layers. And she has a filmography between. I really think she's good in Kong Skull Island, Captain
Yeah.
Marvel, obviously, to carry the film as the lead. I think she could be really good in the role.
Okay. Got you. All right.
Let's move on to the man who may be the most like difficult to cast here. The man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Goldblum, uh, playing Ian in the film.
Mhm.
Nick, who did you end up casting for this film? And do not even dare casting who I think you're gonna cast.
This was the first one I think after at least was the first one I tried to do because I was like, I know I need all the time I can get trying to cast Jeff Goldblum as Jeff Goldblum. Like that's such a specific. It's just again like we've had like actors and characters in this in the past where it's like it's such a specific wavelength that like it's hard to just like find someone to match it. So for me, my thought process was like, who can do like a like a sort of oddball like but still like perceptive person like really well. Scratching my head, I was going through Letterbox and I came across a little movie called Jojo Rabbit, and I was like, oh, Sam Rockwell, and ultimately Sam Rockwell I went with my pick. I think just from that movie alone, you see him being like sort of like kind of like living on you see him on his own wavelength, but even like especially that last scene between him and Roman Griffin Davis, you see there's like a level of like he's been like the character and him has been paying a lot more attention to what's been happening. And I think if anyone can match the sort of like quirky confidence that is Ian Malcolm, Jeff's character, I think Academy Award winners Sam Rockwell is the best bet.
Interesting. We talked about this before. How we thought we were gonna have the same person. We don't.
Okay, good to
I went
hear.
with the. I went with. If I can get it out, I went with Donald Glover in the role.
Donald Glover. Okay.
I think he can have that Jeff Goldblum esque personality to him.
Mhm.
We've seen him play a scientist in, The Martian,
Yeah.
and we've seen him kind of play that quirky, oddball sense of humor while also being smart and Solo.
Solo.
Um, and he has that range. If you've seen him from Atlanta or you've seen him in Community,
Mhm.
he can kind of go anywhere with a character. And
Yeah.
I think that he could really bring out that like next level personality, unique personality that Goldblum has in a just different enough fashion that it's his own, but similar enough that it still fits the role.
Right. Donald Glover. Did not think about that. Okay.
All right, so let's move on to the new age, right?
Mhm.
Since Jurassic World Dominion, which casts all five of these together, is coming
Yeah.
out soon. Let's go on to the Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt, some know him as Star Lord, some
Yep.
know you as Star Lord.
It's true.
Who did you go with as Owen Grady?
Dude, this was hard. He's another person like Chris Pratt is like on a very like his act brand of acting is a very another specific wavelength, and it's like who do you get to replicate that? So I had to go at it with an approach of like not trying to find a Chris Pratt clone, but someone who can still embody the character, sort of like personality of like, yeah, he's the classic action hero, maybe a bit like cocky and snarky, but like he is still like, a down to earth person. And so I went with the man with the metal arm, Sebastian Stan, because I think like I thought about I was like, especially after seeing like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and seeing him branch open into more like a comedic side whenever he's interacting with Anthony Mackie. We know he can be like a pretty like solid like comedic presence. We know he can do action. I mean, he's been doing it for how many years already. And I even think like he can be great as like a sort of like he can be great as like as the lead, as a sympathetic lead, not even just from Falcon, but like I Tanya. I know he wasn't necessarily the quote unquote lead, but he was pretty much the main male character in that movie, and he holds his own against Margot Robbie of all people. So like I think overall, like I think he can be capable as the sort of confident yet snarky type of action hero that is Owen Grady.
Yeah, I was stuck between three people for this role. Um, Unfortunately, you did not narrow down my options. Which often for you guys to look behind the scenes, I usually go second because I have like two or three people I want to cast and I just need them narrowed down.
Yeah.
Um, but for this one, I'm going to let you guys in on who I was picking between. I was picking between John Boyega,
Ooh.
Chris Hemsworth, and
Okay.
Steven Yeun.
Ooh.
Those were
Okay.
my three. Now, they're all very different iterations of Chris Pratt's character, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, Chris Hemsworth is a known animal life protector. You
Hmm.
know, as far as in Australia, he's a big advocate
Yeah.
for land conservation.
Hmm.
So I thought there was kind of a fitting, kind of like a passion project. You could get the best out of him,
Right.
but I didn't get the snarkiness there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Stephen Yeun, he's close, and I think if the character is written a little bit differently, I think he could fit.
Hmm.
But I went with John Boyega. I think he can play the snarkier aspect, like the talking back, I'm smarter than you, while also
Right.
playing the really caring, you know, talking to dinosaurs person that, he kind of mixes the two. And he can be an action star. And I think he could have a
Right.
really good relationship with who I ended up picking as Bryce Dallas Howard
I
as the
can
co
imagine.
star.
I have my suspicions now.
All right, let's move on to Bryce Dallas Howard.
Hmm.
Nick, who did you end up choosing for the role?
I feel like I kind of cheated the system because I was like, Bryce Dallas Howard is a redhead, and I was like, we need a redhead and we need a good actress. So I was like, well, that just works out to one of my personal favorite performers. I went with Jessica Chastain as my Claire Deering because I was like, you look at Zero Dark 30, she can hold her own in like a not like a business setting, but I guess a suit setting. She's just there like handing out orders, manning the room like left, right. And I also think there is a sort of like if you've seen The Help or even in like certain moments like the more comedic moments of like It Chapter 2, she can afford to like go with the craziness of a situation and she can do it without like taking you out of the scene. Like she's able to effortlessly sort of roll with a situation, which in a case where dinosaurs are back for at least when the character comes around for a fourth time, like I think she can both like be a confident like lead, but also be managed to sort of like I'm probably like I'm like an unexperienced person in this like dealing with them type area. So I think she would hit the balance really well, and she's just overall a great actress. I think anything you give her, she will be. Jessica Chastain will be okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a good pick. Not who I would have went with, not who I went with. Um, but definitely an interesting pairing there. Here's what I'll tell you. I went through a lot of people for this Bryce Dallas Howard role, and I found it real. This was maybe the hardest one for me to cast.
Okay.
I ended up going with Amelia Clark.
Emilia
Um,
Clarke. Okay.
I know I led you on. You might have thought it was going to be Daisy Ridley. I
Yeah.
felt that was a little bit too Star Wars centric for me.
Right.
Um, but I think Amelia Clark can play the dominant presence in a room. When she
Yeah.
talks,
Sure.
everyone listens. Whether you've seen it in Solo or Game of Thrones, she can emanate that power.
Right.
Um, but she can also be someone who's not physically, strong, but is really smart, but doesn't know how to be like situationally aware. And I
Right.
feel like she could play that in the world of the dinosaurs, right? The world where it's
Right.
physical as opposed to mental.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that she could combine those two aspects of the character really well.
Okay.
And I don't know why I have a feeling that her and John Boyega could have really good chemistry.
It'd be an interesting pairing for sure. Just this
All
guy.
right. So we have our five. We're going to take a second and we'll come right back and we'll have our lists. We'll go through them.
Okay. Uh,
All right, Nick. So we have our lists together, who we ended up picking for each of the roles. Um, I'll go through your list and I'll tell you who I find interesting, who works, who doesn't.
okay.
Um, I think Emily Blunt works great
Mhm.
as a modern interpretation of Laura Dern
Mhm.
in her character. I think that's kind of a one to one, like perfect fit. Pedro Pascal,
Okay.
I see it. There's something that like I feel like I might need to stretch a little bit. There's something that doesn't quite feel sciency about him. I get
Okay.
more of like a artistic vibe usually from the roles he plays.
Okay. I got you.
Um, so I don't know if I see that, but I do see the peeling layers side to his character. So
Mhm.
I see an aspect, but I don't know if I see the whole picture.
Fair
Um,
enough.
Rockwell makes complete sense.
Mhm.
I think he's going to be very different than Jeff Goldblum, but I think he could portray the same vibe. You know what I
Got it.
mean?
Yeah.
Sebastian Stan is one where I don't know because I don't know if he's going to nail the. I This is just me from Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I don't think he really nailed the humor that well.
Okay.
Like I thought the humor was one of the weaker parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and so
Mhm.
for that, I kind of don't know if I see him hitting those comedic beats.
Fair enough.
But Jessica Chastain, I definitely see what you're going for. I think she was pretty spot on for a casting.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm gonna work backwards. Emilia Clarke as Claire, I really buy. I also like I think you weirdly enough, I think like just I see some sort of like physical resemblance. Like in a way, I'm like, oh yeah, they could like they fit really well. And I think yeah, performance wise, I think that's really good. Boyega, I think works as well as Owen. Um, the only like nitpicky thing that's holding me back is like age, but like I think, but then again, Clark, I think is age. I think Clark's younger than Howard too, so I think it would work still. Donald Glover, I did not think of at all, but like I buy it. Like I really like um out of everyone, I guess besides obviously besides Rockwell, Donald Glover was a really good pick for to replace Goldblum. Um Brie Larson as Ellie, I like that. I mean, like she's already interacted with CGI animals before, so I totally buy that as well. I didn't. She's another one I didn't think of, but she would sell the role really well. And then kind of similar to you, my your Alan, I'm like on the fence about just because like I see the science side. I just like um I don't know. I just feel like Cumberbatch is always like a very like proper like gentleman, like you know, in like Sherlock, he's always like I always like picture him like with like suspenders, like a tie, and like you know, Grant like gets his hands like he's always like dressed like he was like you know like digging in the dirt, and like I'm like trying to like reconcile the two images, but I do see what you're like going for. I'm just trying to like the British gentleman like I just picture him like digging, but like still in a three-piece suit, and it's like it's a weird image. Um, but I will say that my favorite is probably either Larson or Glover, as I think those are just solid picks, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, my favorite of yours was 100% Emily Blunt. Like she is
Actually,
spot on,
mhm.
perfect for the role.
Yeah,
But guys, let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Who's your favorite castings? What do you think worked, didn't work? Who do you think should have been cast as an actor in one of the roles? Let us know down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time.
peace out.